you very much for joining us on Job Seeker Nation. This show, we try to parse the chaff in the weeds from what's good job search advice and what's bad. We try to look at the macro picture and get an idea of what's going on so we can help you all. And if you're in the chat, if you're around looking at us, say hi to us in the chat in the thread where we are on LinkedIn. You can do this on, well, Twitter, you can't do this much, although if you follow me at Mark A. Dyson, you'll find, you can look there. You can also find us on hashtag Job Seeker Nation on YouTube and find it, and you can look there and you can feel free to comment. I'll be able to see it and you can facilitate it that way. Welcome, Jack Kelly, to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, good. Although, how good can you be when you're staring at maybe World War III? So it's a bizarre time.
Yes, it
I'm not going to
is.
front, man. It's like today I feel a little better, but the last couple of days, really a little bit out of sorts.
Yeah,
It was harder to concentrate, harder to
yeah,
focus.
yeah,
Um, obviously for the citizens of the Ukraine, but then also back of your mind, I think, you worry, all right, will the US be drawn into it? Will other countries be drawn into it? What's going to happen? Is
yeah.
Putin that crazy that he's going to hit the nuke button? It's, it's, it's a bizarre time.
Yeah, it is. And I'm afraid of the latter more than probably anything else. And having to drag millions of people into a war that really, I mean, really doesn't even have to be a war except for one person's obsession with power. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. And thus, that's the way we're feeling. It's like if he would have just closed his mouth for a little while longer, that would have been great. But I'm afraid it doesn't work that way. It's just always about somebody wanting more power and more influence and are willing to pay the cost to get it, even though it costs somebody
Yeah.
else's lives.
One of the positives, it's like you're seeing, so many countries kind of rallying behind Ukraine, which is nice to
Yeah,
see. So it's not as if they're like, Ukraine can have it. Let's look the other way and pretend this isn't happening. So it
yeah,
was actually encouraging to see even Switzerland. That's they're known for being neutral and not
neutral.
taking sides. Even it seems there's what 20,000 protesters in the streets
Hmm.
to
Yeah,
say, hey, no, don't we want to cut off financial ties to Russia,
right,
which is pretty historic for them to kind of make that move.
right,
Um, so there's
right.
encouragement. Whenever you have these terrible things, there are always these like little rays of sunshine that you could point to and say, all right, hey, at least look at this. This is something that could be positive and even
Yeah,
positive
yeah,
moving forward.
yeah. Well, one thing I think that we have to look at, especially America and probably the world as well, is that we do root for the underdog. It's sort of like the movie Seabiscuit. Even though we knew, like in some of those races, that there was the star horse, but then there was the horse that had the injury and the lame horse, and really more people started rooting for the lame
Of
horse
course.
rather than the stronger horse, and it became this big thing, and that's what we love. We
Oh,
love
it's
to,
it's Rocky, right? It's Rocky,
yeah,
Bad News
yep,
Bears, Bad
yep,
News Bears, the Mighty
yeah,
Ducks.
yep.
Uh, there's so many of them. Oh my God,
Yeah,
there's tons of those movies.
they might be giants.
Yeah,
One Rudy.
Rudy. Oh,
Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah,
yeah, we can name them all.
yeah.
But yeah, that's what we do, and we look for the underdog and the person that came from nowhere to somewhere, and the guy who's the leader, who's leading the charge, is the president of the company,
Yeah.
the president of the country. So we love stories like that, and I think that's one of the reasons why we kind of pay attention to those
Yeah.
things, which kind of goes along with the theme today.
But you know what I
If,
find is I think, uniquely American weird thing we do is we root for the underdog, right? And
yeah,
we build up and we champion the underdog. But then when the underdog becomes like up here,
yeah,
then we attack. Then we find all the faults with that person. Like I'm waiting
yeah,
for Zelensky, right? When they're
yeah,
going to finally say, "Oh, do you know Zelensky did this?" Like after champion him is such a hero and such a role model.
right, right, right. I
Presuming
I
everything
hope
goes well. Let's just say everything
I
goes
hope this
well.
is
Time goes by. then
I
all of a
hope this is
sudden,
one time we can take a pass.
yeah,
I really do think that. I think Michael agreed with me about the Rudy. The Rudy movie was special. Of course,
yeah,
the Rocky movies are all
yeah,
about the little guy coming from
yeah,
nowhere and to go somewhere. So and I really think I think that's the way sports figures kind of look at themselves, and they kind of look at, and they have a narrative that, people are talking about me, and, the Patriots won 7 Super Bowls. They're always the underdog in their minds. They always say, the whole world's against us, and they're talking about us, thinking we can't do X, Y, and Z. They end up winning, and people fall for it every single time. Those guys won
yeah.
7 Super Bowls. I
But
mean,
you know what? It doesn't
granted,
it doesn't cross over though to sometimes like the job search, because if you're the underdog, it's like with the Patriots, they have that swagger. They'll pretend, oh yeah, this year
right,
it's gonna be rough,
right,
but they know they're gonna kind of prevail. They feel it.
right.
But if you're like looking for a job, sometimes the underdog, it's tough. It's tough to get that
And
confidence up.
people take the broader road when it comes to that, and that's broader road is that they feel everything that happens to them, every single hurdle that they jump, every single no that they get, all of a sudden they feel that. But yet, that's what goes on in the movie and in people's lives whose movies are told about. Is that the no is all a part of the game, and you become desensitized by ignoring the no, and forging forward. No means maybe no, not yet. Maybe no, this isn't the route for you. But there's another route that's clear. It can mean a lot of things. But I think, yeah, I think it doesn't cross over like it should. We could watch the movie in 1 second and then forget that applies to your life too. So yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So what about us talking a little bit about well, not so much about the movie, but we definitely want to give people some tools. But what is the aftermath for companies to show that they're slow to adapt to the new world of work, as we talked a little bit about uh, during our pre-game
Mhm.
chat, so to speak, where companies are refusing to listen to what the rest of the world is saying about how they want to work.
It's interesting. I find there's definitely a bifurcated market where you have some companies that get it and they realize, hey, there's a war for talent, there's a great resignation. And
Hmm.
if we don't take care of our people, they're going to leave. And so
Yeah.
that in order to attract, recruit, retain, they have to have a reason. They have to have the brand to say, "Hey, come with us." And that brand might be, "Hey, it's a 4-day work week." It may be you don't have to do 8 hours if you get your work done in 5 hours. It
Hmm.
could be better pay. It could be, hey, we give 2 weeks off for mental health break, and everybody's going to be off. It could be, you know, Fridays afternoons off in the summer. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. And there are, to the credit of some companies, they're pulling all those levers because they realize,
Hmm.
hey, we want our people to be happy and motivated and productive. And we're gonna ask them, like, hey, what do you need? What do you need to succeed? What do you need to stay here and be happy? Hold a
Hmm.
stay interview and to discuss, like, hey, how can I make sure that you're happy and growing and progressing? But then you have other companies that are clueless and they're acting like it's 5, 6, 10 years ago, where
Hmm.
they feel they don't have to bend over backwards. Here's the job, here's the pay, take it or leave it. You have to go for 10 interviews over 6 months, and we're going to ghost you, by the way, and we're not going to
Yeah.
give you feedback. We're not going to, you only, you may have 30 years of experience, but now you're only going to get 2 weeks vacation. But since you started mid-year, Mark, sorry, you really only get a week off. Sorry,
Right. And you don't qualify for the bonus either, by the
yeah. Oh,
way.
yeah. You missed that bonus. Yeah. Too
You
bad.
missed
Oh,
the
well.
bonus. We gave that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is one of I think that companies, and there are your good companies, and there are those that are in the middle who are still trying to figure out And why is it a lot of companies that are still trying to figure out take such a long time to eventually say that, oh, we hadn't figured that out yet? Why don't you just say we really decide we really don't want to do this, but they won't be truthful or transparent, and that's what kills people. Kill people. People see that the lack of transparency is like we're all playing poker, and you don't have a great hand, but you're willing to wait it out as long as you possibly can, and thus the candidate ends up paying the price for it.
I
So
think, it's like with transparency, I think people respect that. So even if they don't agree with what you have to say, they respect that you're upfront. So let's say I went on an interview and you would say to me, Jack, it's going to be 6 rounds. You might end up meeting, 6 to 10 different people,
mhm,
and give some other color on what it's going to be. Now, I might not be happy that it's going to be 6 rounds with 10
right,
people,
right,
but at least you said that. So now I can make an intelligent decision. Do I want to proceed or not proceed? And just by
right.
you, even if 6+ interviews is an annoyance, I respect the fact that you let me know up front. So then now I could be empowered to make that decision to go or not to
Yeah.
go. So things like that, just let it out there. They don't, and I think a lot of times companies and people don't kind of get that. They rather not say anything. Oh, because if I say 6 interviews, they're not going to do it. They're not going to come. And but then you make them go through these hoops and they're unhappy and they're miserable and they bail out, or they'll take a different offer or just stay where they are, and it blows up, and it's just so short-sighted.
And I get it, but what amazes me still, and I think we talked about this in another scenario, but I think it applies to here, is that there are people who are actually cheering these companies on and their behavior. They say, well, just because I'm glad the CEO is taking a stand. You got to protect what's in. This is the only right way to go, and it's like, for real, there's always somebody who champions that, but yet they're not willing to quit their job to go to that company as opposed to staying where they are, because they have it better than they actually than the company that's stating they're taking the stand. Like when the better.com company let go 900 people, there was that Fox anchor who said that, I'm glad that guy stood up and said what he said and did what he did to show those people that that he's the CEO. And it's like, for real. There was no empathy, but I just think it's a very interesting conversation of why people cheer those folks on to continue to behave the way they are.
I don't know. I don't know, like, why. It'd be really hard pressed to defend a person who clearly was just so rude and dismissive to his
Yeah.
and insensitive to his team. Could he have, if you want to be gracious, maybe he had a bad day. Maybe he felt terrible that had to do it and it just came out poorly. Maybe, but he could have said that. He could say, he could have caught himself midway of doing it. Oh my God, what am I doing? You know what? I'm so sorry. I don't want to have to be letting you go, and and I did this the wrong way. Just do something to
Yeah,
kind of
because
ameliorate the
because it's
situation.
because strength in that kind of dramatic form is also what we're attracted to. We talked beforehand about people cheer like the Seabiscuit horse that was the lame horse. Yeah, there was that one horse that was winning and all that, but then there was the lame horse that couldn't run, that was more or less on the last leg, more or less was going to be shot at the end or killed, because what happens to horses with bad legs. We are cheering vigorously for that horse, but yet we have the other side where we're also cheering for the Wall Street character, so to speak. The guy that talks about money and greed, and how saying greed overcomes everything, so to speak. We buy into one of those two. It's rare when we kind of look at the middle ground and say, well, what about the people in the middle? And that's what we do. And I think that's just part of our behavior, particularly as America, that we do. And sometimes it boggles my mind.
Yeah, it's just I think some companies and people, some are very empathetic and understanding and compassionate, and they do their best to take care of their people and their staff, and then others don't care. They just don't care. It doesn't
Yeah,
resonate with them. You know, they're all about themselves, and yeah, and this is how it is, and yeah, well, too bad. And
yeah,
it's sad to see that.
yeah, it is. And, I think people are paying more attention, though, to those companies that are acting that way. And I think people should, as we're talking about advancing your career and pay attention to certain things, they need to take a stock of how companies behave in these scenarios so that they won't apply to that company, or if they do, at least they have an informed decision. Maybe their DNA is such is that they like it rough and tough and challenging so that maybe they'll be seen as somebody to stand up. I'm not going to hate on that, but I just don't think most people will eventually fall for that. Sarah had wrote a comment here. She asked this question: do you think these
Mm.
companies that are not keeping up will fall or fail?
Absolutely,
What
absolutely.
what consequences are there? Well, I think in the long term, that people, yeah, companies do fail. Even if they don't close, they fail in finding talent that they can be. Instead of being in first place, they end up being in 15th. Is one way, and it could only go down from there many times. Jack.
You know, because like to me, a lot of this boils down to the kind of job market. So if it's a
Hmm.
hot job market, people have choices, and most people will choose to work in a place where they're shown appreciation and gratitude, the money,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
benefits, the ability to grow your career in advance.
Hmm.
And if you go to a company that, if you're with a company that doesn't have it in a hot job market, it's easier to say, you know what, I'm going to leave. Why should I stay here where there's a micromanager? I don't have a remote option. I have to be in the office every single day.
Hmm.
They're not really doing anything to empower me. They don't talk about where my career could grow within the organization. So I'm going to leave. And you can
Right.
do it. You know,
Right.
during the early days of the pandemic, a lot of people didn't have a choice because it was so horrible. We didn't know how long this would go on for. So people would hold their nose and take whatever job because they had to put food on the table and they have to do what they have to do. But now it's completely different. Now,
Yeah.
this doesn't hold for everybody, but for the
Right.
vast majority of people, it is a relatively hot job market depending on what sector you're in. So you do have these choices. And then to the question that was posed, yeah, I think what'll happen is that the company that tone deaf, mindset, they're going to lose. The only way they could keep people if they just pay them a lot of money, but then you have a whole bunch of mercenaries, and that usually doesn't go well.
No, it doesn't. And you also find out later that they all this time they weren't treating people well
Yeah.
anyway, despite their advertisements. I mean, you think about I think about when particularly Payscale, which is Payscale.com. I've written for them in the past. A year or two ago, I think they started giving people a week off in July.
Mhm.
And you see all of these postings about, yeah, I'm having fun this. Thank you, Payscale, for doing that, this, that, and the other. And, a lot of people were like, wow, I wish that my company would just give us a week off without punishing me, without taking
Yeah,
my vacation time. That would be great. The people then become your brand ambassadors, by
exactly.
default. And then everybody start wishing, and then they're going to look at the competing companies. The competing company is still talking about, well, we want people back in the office. Eh, I'm going to go over here and look into the companies that letting people off for a week without punishing them by taking their vacation time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a difference where when you could have your own team, on social media saying, "Yeah, this is great. This is awesome." It's the
Yeah.
it's the best branding.
It is the best branding. And it's the branding that makes sense because you get real people who you can go to as a job seeker or somebody who's looking at changing career and go ask questions. And you can get a first-hand account instead of dreaming. by looking from the outside in what a company's like, and they can tell you what it is. And Lord knows, should you catch them when they are enjoying their week off or just got off this week off, they're going to have nothing but good things to say because everybody benefits. Everybody wins in that scenario. Or even if you were the Dan Price guy that raised everybody to $70,000. I mean, that is the minimum wage, that company that he does. And everybody is going to go, wow, look what they're doing. They buying houses. They're talking about how great it is to work. And and there were those detractors, so, oh, it's going to fail and all that. But apparently he's more profitable than he's ever been with this company. So, again, that's where the people will speak and everybody else will go, I want to work for him, or at least see what he's doing, because these guys ain't talking about anything.
I think what I've seen, it's kind of starting to be a bit of a movement where, you know, as a company, you have a brand like, okay, we're Coca-Cola. The brand is Coca-Cola.
Hmm.
Coca-Cola, is
Right.
is amazing, whatever. But I think for their recruiting efforts and how they take care of their employees, you're going to start seeing a lot more companies trying to brand themselves as a place that here you want to work here. Not just
Hmm.
the product or the service, but being here, working here, having a career here to
Hmm.
stand out, to show that, hey, listen, we care so much. We're really putting a lot of effort. And this is if you come here, just like if you buy a car, if you got a car, here's what you get. You get that whole like list of all the cool things on the car. Same thing.
Right.
Hey, if you come work here, this is what you get. You get, a month, a week off in July and everybody else is off. So you don't have to worry about responding to Slack messages or
Hmm.
text or what have you. So you can just completely disconnect here. And
Right.
then they can give the whole kind of list of all the awesome things they do. And it's
Yeah.
like, huh, like you were saying, yeah, I want to go
Yeah.
work there. That sounds really
Yeah.
cool. That
Yeah.
sounds really
I think
humane.
I think LinkedIn did it too
Yeah.
last year, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
They
LinkedIn was
did.
another that actually said, we encourage you to
Yeah.
disconnect, and that doesn't get any better. You don't have to think about the work that you got to get back to when
Right.
you go
Right.
back to vacation, because everybody is in the same spot. And I think that's a great way to be that. So I know that if I'm looking for a job and I'm looking at companies that are doing it and the ones that don't, they're still trying to hold on to the old times and tradition and all that because they think that's where the profit is. The health of people is also a great big advantage these days, especially when you consider somebody's mental health and the relief that you feel by getting these things without having to beg for them or trying to justify it. It's a wonderful thing to be able to have access to that kind of to a company that cares about you and are making all the efforts. There might be instances where where somebody's not happy, but that's going to be pretty rare when somebody's treating people with that kind of respect and care for their overall health. So I think that's where people can start paying more attention to, and you don't have to be on a subreddit thread in order for you to really get that info. You can look at LinkedIn, look at Twitter, and look at people who are talking about
Yeah. It's a change. I'm seeing where companies now are much more tuned to how their people are, their emotional well-being, their mental health. Are they
it.
feeling
Hmm.
lonely? Are they feeling isolated? Um, Feeling depressed? Are they feeling
Hmm.
burnt out? So they're becoming much more cognizant of how their people are, and
Yeah.
which is great because it never really was like that. But now they're really,
No.
paying attention, and they need to, because if you don't as well, if you have a whole bunch of employees who are burnt out,
Hmm.
then they're just going to be disengaged. They're
Yeah.
going to lose interest. So they're going
Yeah.
to be working, but maybe at a fraction of what they can do. And then
Hmm.
maybe sometimes you get a lot of this too. Not only do they kind of just walk through the motions, they're going to complain, they're going to gripe, they're going to talk behind people's back.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they're going to get involved with sabotage, but in a way, all that is sabotage because it's just causing dissent. So so
Yes.
so it's not even you that's kind of slow walking everything and just being disengaged, but now you're bringing everybody down around you, and
Hmm.
so you have. have this just snowball effect. And this is why I always wonder too with companies. So let's say, Mark, you get a new job, you leave. Now there's, let's say, 5 other people in your group. Now they're going to dump all your work on the 4 of us who remain.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we can handle this work for a bit. And then a week goes by, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're like, wait, we're doing an extra job. We're not getting paid extra, but we're putting in more time, more effort. We had to learn your job because we didn't really know your job. So we have to figure it out. We're not sure if we're doing a good job of doing your job. And then you get the realization, oh, now they're not going to even hire someone because they're thinking, oh, well, this team, they were handling it great. So we don't even need to hire someone. And now we're stuck with more work for the same pay. And now we're frustrated, right? We're frustrated. We're angry. We feel like duped. So then what happens? I leave. Now the other 3 have all the work to do. So this is what happens when you have these kind of clueless managers who don't kind of follow through. They think they're so smart. Hey, look, I saved the company money because Mark left and we didn't replace him. So we have all that extra money for our bonus. Yay. But they don't realize then Jack's going to leave and Jane's going to leave and Sally. And then before you know it, you just have this mass, exodus. And then try going to recruit somebody when they say, hey, why is this job open? Because the person left? Oh, huh. What about why are there other job openings there? They left too? They all left?
Yeah. Well, interesting you should say that, because I recently had a conversation with someone who worked for a company where 2 people died.
Oof.
And they died 6 months apart. And they never replaced either one of those people.
Right.
So the other people adapted to work, but when they go and try to have the conversation, so when are you going to hire? They make believe like that position doesn't exist anymore. It's like you either phased out the position or they're trying to save that money to hire to do something else. Instead of telling people, well, we decided to close the position. Well, that means a whole lot more than me wondering why you're not replacing those people. Those people, they weren't valuable. You didn't care about them. I mean, at least tell the person something that will help them move on, because for them, it's a loss, not just because of the job, but they were a person that they knew, that they worked side by side, and they're gone. And these were young people. These weren't like people in the ones that died. They were in their 30s.
Oh my
They
goodness.
weren't. One was 31. One thing that just may have turned 40, but they were young. And we could say that older people, so okay, older people, they do pass on. But in your 30s, really? And then you don't say nothing as a manager. And it's like, and it's not just one, they all ride the same line. So it's like, so why hadn't so-and-so hired another person? And they say, well, I don't know. It's like all of that. It's like, really? And that's what gets to people. That makes them want to turn around and start to think that they're underappreciated for a number of different reasons. This is going to happen when I die. That's what they're going to think. But I think ultimately, it's tone deaf. Like
and you would think, number one, they should give some grief support and some help, because we work with somebody. And listen, anyone dies, it's terrible. But I think we can agree, when you have someone who's so early on in their life,
and
it hits harder a little bit.
Both of these people, one died through a car accident, the other one died through a relationship.
So the people left, they got to be this emotional trauma. You work with these 2 people, presumably all the time, and this happens.
Completely ignored, other than announcing in the company that these people had funerals.
Jesus. And then on top of it too, so this is what always drives me a little nuts, how clueless companies can be, is that then just come back and say, put aside the death part, but just now you have 2 people who aren't there and the work piles up. Just say what's going to happen. So maybe you might say, hey, we're not going to replace these roles for whatever reason.
Hmm.
And so be it. So
Yeah.
you may then decide, hey, if you're not replacing it, I think I'm going to leave because that's too much work. Or
Right.
that opens the door for me to say, hey, boss, two people left. They both did a lot of work. We both know they were great, employees. I'll be glad to do the extra work, but let's renegotiate my compensation. And they could say
Yeah.
yes, they could say no, but then you can have a decision. But at least it's all out in the open. Rather than
Right.
playing games like, hey, Mark, what's going on? Are you replacing him? I don't know. I got to find out from this person. Hey, Mark, 2 weeks later, hey, any word? Well, I don't know. I'm still waiting back. A month later, it's like, because that's even worse. Because then you just like, you don't care at all. You didn't care about the
Right.
people who are no longer there. You don't
Yeah.
care about me. You don't care about everyone else.
Yeah.
And once again, I'll go back to this. If it's a hot job market, then you're like, you know what? I'm out of here. But while I'm here, I'm not gonna even bother. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
even, I'm just gonna kind of coast and just take it easy because you couldn't care less about me as a person.
Yeah, yep. And that kind of leads to another question we talk about in the chat a little bit, and we can add this on the top of the layers as we continue to talk about this, because I think these are things that people need to pay more attention to as they go along in their job search. Is not just the fact that this job is open and maybe so and so can refer you. You want to also get an idea of what the culture is like, and so being that you have talked to a number of CEOs and people in the C-suite recently, I think this is a great question. So, what will be the breakthrough to kind of crack the code for a great work culture? And these are things that people can actually look for when they talk or when they look at a company and kind of analyze, would this be a good culture for me? Do you get some things? Have you gleaned some things from those that you've talked to, especially for your podcast, Happy at Work?
Yeah, I think a lot of things is what when you speak to whether in an interview or you know just doing your homework on it, you want to see how rigid or flexible they are.
Hmm.
Do they are they a company that says, okay, return to the office now and everyone has to be in their office? Well, okay, if that's what they want to do, but is there any discussion about it? Why do I have to go back in the office? Do I have to go
Hmm.
back in 5 days a week? Like, why are you arbitrarily saying come back? Because for 2 years we were really productive, and now
Hmm.
now you don't trust me, so I have to come back. So there's certain tells where you get a warning sign, huh? That doesn't smell right. Like why? Now
Right.
I could completely respect because I was speaking to this, you know, chief people officer who's kind of working out a strategy, and what he was
Hmm.
saying in part is that I can't tell people to come back to the office, even though we want to have people come back. I have to have a compelling reason that they want to come back, and
Yeah.
that's his job. He was saying that's like my job to figure out like we need to do things, and he was working on it. Like he didn't have a final blueprint yet, but work on
Right.
things so that people say, "Oh, okay, you know what? I rather be home. I rather be remote, but I hear what you're saying. I respect what you're saying, and you know what? I'll give it a shot. Or let's negotiate. Instead of
Yeah.
5 days, 3 days, or even if you want 4 days, let's see how it goes." So you want to see how open your companies are. They like very rigid and has to be this way and that's it, or
Hmm.
is it flexible and open? Do they offer that week off for mental health? Do they care about your emotional well-being? Do they care if you're burnt out? Um, do they have one of the questions someone asked about if someone leaves about if you don't have the degree, you can't take the job. I'm fine and asked about upskilling. That's another thing to look for. I'm seeing so many companies now involved with upskilling and
Hmm.
training because they realize, wait a minute, in this new digital economy, even this is wild. I was just met with the guy who's in charge of Goodwill Industries. This guy,
Uh-huh.
Steve Preston, really nice guy.
Hmm.
And I only knew of them from the thrift store. I didn't know they had a whole job program training.
Are you
And
kidding? Yeah, yeah.
I
We
didn't
had
know
we
that.
we had a guest that actually
Yeah,
works for Goodwill in
yeah.
that manner, in the workforce. They have a workforce development. And so who
Yes,
knew?
and they have a whole drive. They're one of their recent drives right now is about,
Hmm.
closing that digital gap because they're concerned and the people they serve are underserved people generally. Um,
Hmm.
you know, some have high school degrees, a lot, maybe some don't. Um, and they're concerned that they'll just keep falling behind the more everything, accelerates. So they're trying to
Mhm.
teach them, some just at the beginning. Here's how you get on a computer. Here's how you get
Yeah,
on Facebook. Literally, here's how to do this, all the way to maybe learning cybersecurity and what have you. So there's a lot of these companies now. That's another way to answer your question, Mark. That's
yeah.
another way to look at it. Does your company offer these things? Are they saying, are they going to train you? Are they going to upskill you? Are they going to help you learn and stay current? That's worth a lot of money. Even if they don't pay you the money for it, that's money. That's like money you get because you're building for your future.
That's
Because
a
if the,
career
yeah,
advancement strategy in that sense. There was a one time I remember that that people were told that they were responsible for their own careers. They were not responsible for training you for the future of your career. But yet there are some companies that do it, and even though they may see people come and go, they get the quality of people that apply to the job because that very reason then goes up. Therefore, in the long term, you do win, and you do get
yeah.
something.
Just think about
And
Mark.
people want to companies want to take the
Right.
shortcut. They just think about what's now. This is the budget for 2022. We're not thinking about 23 or 24. We're thinking about now, and this is what we're doing now. And
Yeah.
things change
Well, think about
dramatically
this,
from one
Mark.
to another.
Think about this. Let's say, you and I, we're kind of interested in pivoting to tech. And the
Yeah.
company, we work together, and the company says, hey, would you guys like to learn cybersecurity? And we're like, wow, in this day and age, yeah, that's super
Heck
hot.
yeah.
That's really hot. Oh, well, you train us for that? Yeah, we'll train you. We'll send you a boot camp or some schooling, or we'll do it in-house. And we're like,
Hmm.
yeah. And then wouldn't we be so appreciative that all of a sudden we learn this skill that's in high demand? And let's say we were really excited and interested to begin with. We
Right.
would probably be like lifers there because we would be so appreciative that you chose us and said, hey, Mark, Jack, we have faith in you. We want you to be here. We want you to stay with the company, and we want to make
Yeah.
sure you have room to grow. And this is a fast growing area, and we think you both can handle it.
Yeah.
Think about the difference that is. We would be probably the most loyal employees, and we would be the ones going on social
Absolutely.
media saying, "Guess what? I just got my, certification in cybersecurity, and look what I'm doing. I'm battling, the Russians and making sure that they're not hacking things." It's like,
Oh
what
yeah.
what a difference.
Yeah, not only that, but it also shows that you value the employee. You
Yes.
trust them and
Yeah.
say, yes, we want to increase your value doing this. And even if I decide not to do it when I leave there, I'm going to feel some kind of way about leaving because then they say, wow, they really helped me in my career and helped me so that I look at myself a whole lot differently as far as the marketplace is concerned. And even if you decide not to leave, you feel great about the job because somebody actually looked out for you and cared and
Yeah.
offered something really generous like that. Because thousands and thousands of dollars go into these trainings. And you go into these boot camps, you're away from work for a week, maybe. Maybe you're in another city, or maybe you're at
Yeah.
home doing the virtual training. You're away. That's like almost like having a vacation in some sense, and it
Yeah.
makes you feel great about that company. Of course, you would want to take advantage of it. And those things used to happen on a regular basis because people stayed at companies. It didn't happen a lot, but there were some companies that actually did that once upon a time. Then they took it out of it because it was costing too much money. Now it's almost like you better have something. And I think Gen Z actually is that's the thing that they look for in a lot of these cultures is what are you teaching me? Are you giving me a mentor? Are you giving me, something I can build my future?
Yeah.
They're looking at increasing their value. And you know this, you've got a son that's a Gen Zer. And they care about something, they want to do something that they would care about. What more can you care about than getting something that would elevate your market value?
Here's another thing they care about. I'll speak to Gen Zs for a second about that. Is that
Uh,
they also look for a company that they share the same values, the
yes.
same core principles, values. So they want
Yeah.
to align themselves with a company that
Yeah.
champions those issues. And conversely, if it's a company that doesn't, they may say, I don't want to work there or stay there because there's a disconnect between
Hmm.
what you're about and what I believe in. So that's another thing to look for. the
Yeah.
companies that, you have that shared commonality. Let me ask you this
Yeah.
though, Mark. I was curious.
Okay.
So
All right.
I spoke to some senior HR person, and they talked about when people come aboard, it's like doing a tour of duty. Those are
Hmm.
not my words, their words. Meaning,
Okay.
the expectation is that the person might join, stay there for maybe a year ish, and then move on. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And that's kind of built into the cake that that's what's
Hmm.
going to happen. And
Right.
I'm not sure how to process that. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. I really don't know. Or that a bad thing or um,
I wrote an article last that was published last week about what boomers can learn from Zoomers. Zoomers being,
right.
pretty much Gen Z. And one of the things the companies have to realize that people are now a business of one, and people are going to look out for their interests. They're thinking beyond settling in at a job. And that's one thing the companies are kind of, the more progressive companies are kind of understanding is that that person's going to look out for the career first rather than the position and the whole adage of the old work hard, you'll get somewhere, which we know that is not particularly true. But all in all, they're using that as the strategy, and companies are kind of realizing that, hey, this is going to happen, and this is how we're going to make the best. And that's why I think a lot of these positions now that may have been traditionally or even they're new, they're treated more like contract positions where they'll have specific tasks, specific goals, and they'll get paid according to that. Then when the job is done, if there's especially if there's nothing else that's related, it's going to be understood that contract has ended. Now that person may say, well, let's see if there's something else, or maybe they built their contract work in such a way that there are tiers to this and say, this is just one tier. We got several tiers. I can do it, or you can have somebody else do it. But all in all, I think by that comes along with some things that might not be as traditional, like you may not be paying benefits as a company to that person or that group, and you may not be necessarily, it's understood that you're not responsible for giving them more training and all that. And I think there's the good side of it, the fact that, yeah, people, being treated as a contract, you're there to do the business, nothing more, nothing less. And then you can go, or they can hire you to do the next tier of work that's coming up, and maybe you're the only one that could do it, which you would have to, of course, be able to make that case through your work and the value you put into that job. But yeah, I think that's where it's kind of leading to in a lot of ways.
It's interesting. Hearing you talk about it, it may make sense in the sense that it's like an option. Hey, I'm going to go there for a year, and on both sides, like let's see what happens.
Yeah,
And after that year, you may decide, say, hey, you know what? I do like the company, but we've all seen this in companies, right? You have like so many levels above you,
right,
and maybe they're relatively young, and you can see they're not going anywhere.
right,
So then you process and go, wait a minute, I could be here for 5 years, and I'm going to probably still be in the same role.
yeah,
So what am I going to? I'm going to stay here maybe 2 years, 3 years, just to have it on my resume, and I know I'm
right,
not going to be learning anything new. That's dumb.
right,
So let me kind of just leave, find another job where I could keep learning, make new connections, make new networks, and then grow from there. And there might be value to that. Or
yeah,
both parties may say, you know what, this is a really good fit. Jack and Mark are kind of moving to different places within the organization, so it opens up some room. How
mhm,
about do you want to do that? And maybe you have that option too to see, hey, maybe if something changes, stick around.
yeah.
I don't know. That could be kind of the one of the futures of work where
I
it's
think it is. I think
yeah,
it is kind of the future of work in the sense
yeah,
that people won't be, it won't have to be tied to a single job or trying to get into the same industry, into the upper levels of industry. Maybe that person likes the one and done engagement because then after they've done their contract, they've charged what they wanted to, and they charge maybe enough for them to have a 3 or 4 month break before they take on another contract. So there, or in some cases, people can work two
Yeah.
contracts in one, especially when you do virtual work. You could be working two contracts at one time. That's your job, is to do this contract. That's a full-time job. To do the other contract job, you're doing both from home. You're at home being able to take the needs. You learned how to time management real well, where you can have the time to go and have a little fun here and there, but you also have enough to live on for not just 1 year or two, because you work two jobs, not one. You can either invest it, or you can, which is very possible. And I thought about that. I've written about how that investment in the upcoming hour, how, people will use those second jobs as kind of to do their health benefits the way they want to, and to roll over and invest the way they want to, as opposed to just the 403, 403 or the 401 that people normally do, because that money doesn't grow as fast as if I took that salary and invested into a piece of property, which would uh, give me some greater financial value overall, or invest in these into these mental health capacities, where my mental health will be taken care of, my dental is taken care of, my regular health is taken care of, or that maybe I want to travel, and you can still travel, and people are doing this. Not It's not the norm, but people are doing this, where they are digital nomads, we've talked about before, and they've got two contracts, and they all both full-time contracts, and they're just saving their money. So yeah, I think those options are
Yeah.
becoming more, as people have decided that's the way they want to live, or even experiment for a short time.
It's interesting. So I was kind of thinking more line, not a contract, more of a actual salary, permanent job for that 1 year
Okay.
thing. But it's very similar though in that respect, in that you put in that time, and as I'm hearing you walk through, your analysis, um, that could probably maybe be net positive for both sides of the equation. Because think about it, like as you're kind of talking about it, I'm thinking it through.
Uh-huh.
We've all seen how hard it is to go through the interview process, how many hoops you have to go through, hurdles to jump over,
Sure.
because they're worried. Hey, if we hire Mark, we're anticipating him staying 3, 5, 10 years. Whew, that's a
Hmm.
big decision. It is, to be fair, it is
Right. Right.
on both sides. But if you're thinking, hey, this person's going to be here a year, salary job, salary Bennett's job for a year. But let's say
Hmm.
maybe the person's not going to stay for a year, and that's cool. And let's see how it plays. So then you might be more apt to hire somebody because you don't have, I'm just thinking it through. So you don't
Yeah.
have that pressure of like, all right, I need 10 people, no exaggeration, 5 to 10 people to interview because we want to make the right decision. This is a big thing because it's
Hmm.
1 year. Like, all right, 1 year, let's see. Maybe we have 3 interviews, 2 interviews. Let's see, and let's see how it goes.
And that's a big part of the thinking, is that you
And that
think
would
about
make the
contractors
job
a whole
search
lot,
much better if flow
but
more,
you think
particularly on
about,
the
and you hit it. People think about contractors a whole lot differently than employees. Contractors, you don't have the relationship
yeah,
you do with an employee.
yeah,
That's a good paradigm shift, because the
yeah,
whole idea for a company to sell themselves as, yeah, we're kind of like family here, which isn't true, but we can discuss that another time. Or to a contractor say, we need this done, and you're finding out exactly, and the person is marketing themselves that way,
yeah,
that yes, I can get these things done because I've done it for the company X, and
yeah.
I can do it for you, and you can build that case because you've done this for several different companies now, so you're used to being able to get the job done, and you're ready to go. Or do you want to pay me a little bit more for an extra year?
But wait, Mark, think about this. So let's say this something like this becomes adopted, right? Where
Right.
you could, and so let's say an employee, because with a contract, as you mentioned, people look at it a little differently. So let's say you're
Yeah.
you're you're a full-time permanent employee, salary,
Hmm.
bonuses, all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
it's understood that Jack may only be there, or Sarah is only going to be there maybe a year, maybe a year and a half. But that's okay.
Hmm.
We're going into that with an open relationship, understanding that they could kind of cheat on us and go somewhere else. Or in a year or so say, you know what? Yeah, thanks. It wasn't so great. But by doing that, it creates the
Hmm.
climate where you don't have to have so many interviews, jump through so many hoops, because you could give someone a choice, a chance, because a year goes, we both know a year could go so quickly.
It
And
flies
you don't
by
have this,
and fly
right? You
by.
don't have the stress of having to worry, oh my God, we have to play, this person's gonna be here 10 years. So we got to make sure we made the right decision. And then for the company too, they could feel like, hey, we don't have to have that awkwardness of saying,
Hmm.
well, if you're not really as good as we thought you would be, and we're gonna have to let you go, and now we have to worry about you suing us for whatever reason, or you're gonna badmouth us, because now it's open, like, oh, hey, we're just gonna try it out and see how it goes. And then to take it even to the next level, I was initially thinking of younger people, but why couldn't that be for, people anywhere in their career? Let's say for people who are long-term unemployed. Let's say for people who have gaps in their resumes. Instead of having like, oh my God, what do we do? Why did the person have such a gap? What are we in for?
Hmm.
Like, okay, if it's an understanding, people could just be there a year and leave. Okay, let's try. What's the worst that happened? He's there 6 months, 9 months, and it's not working out. Okay, before you know it's a year, and all right, we gave it a shot. We gave this person a chance. It really didn't work out, whatever. Or it turns out, wow, I'm so glad we gave this person a chance. This person's a rock star. It was not their fault at all. It was just bad breaks, bad timing, bad luck. But wow, did we get a winner? Please don't go. Stay here. And that person may say, you know
I
what?
agree.
I was only playing a
Yeah.
year, but I'll be glad to stay another couple of years, see what happens.
But that's why you have a thing called severance. And for a lot of companies, to be badmouthed by several employees could be pretty damaging to the brand. So
Yeah,
why not give them more than just a 6 week severance? In the long term, either have the damage to the brand, or you have people who you said, why does, let it being let go doesn't always have to be adversarial.
right.
It could be
See,
that
that's
that
what I mean,
person
right?
really
Because if you
didn't.
go into it with more of an open relationship, then it's
Yeah.
not right. It's you
Yeah,
feel a little
and
freer
then
on both
pay,
sides.
and instead of 6 weeks severance, or
Yeah,
maybe a couple of months, maybe it wouldn't hurt to pay him 6 to 8 months, or maybe a year severance, if especially if you trust that you'll bring in somebody else that will work out, and that you'll keep people who have left positive about, because paying 6 months severance will keep me quiet. I mean, it really would. You gave me a lump sum, or you decide to continue to pay me, and maybe you have some kind of disclosure. Um, in some cases, maybe that would work. Maybe it wouldn't. You have to test it out. But in the long term, that benefits the company as much as an employee not saying anything down the line. So yeah, I think we got some comments here. I do want to hit a couple of those. Um, let's see. Sarah says that she's 26, and she says she can't work at a company that has messed up
now, what's
culture and
messed up
values.
values though? See, that's the thing. Everyone has their own. So
And you
what's the
know what?
definition? Uh,
I think, and that's part of it, right? Is that you look for a company where you share those values.
yeah,
And if they don't share those values, maybe you consider that kind of messed up. Or maybe they lied to you and they only showed it on the outside. And we see this all the time, especially when they say, we're a really diverse company. And you walk in, you go, this is diversity. So it's like, it's kind of like that. Uh, Calixte, I hope I pronounced it correctly. Thanks for commenting. He says some companies would rather keep that opening instead of giving the position to an employee who possesses a degree required but only needs some training. Yeah, this is kind of like the switch and bait. They say yes, we will only have those who have higher college degree, and then when you get up and there's an opportunity, you say, well, you don't have the degree that we need to have. It's like, I thought you wanted a degree. You didn't say I have to have a degree in this. It's the switch and bait, and that it becomes a really rough spot for
here's
a lot
something
of
though
folks.
that's trending that would be of interest is
Uh-huh.
there's so many organizations now, whether Coursera, Udacity, um, Khan Academy. There's so many places where companies could use their services to upskill you
Hmm.
and train you. So there really shouldn't be an excuse now, because
Right.
if you're an employee in good standing and you're doing a great job and you're motivated and they want to keep you, they could just kind of enroll you in one of those courses to kind of
Yeah.
make good on. I'm even wondering as time goes on, is it? I was just speaking to the CEO of Udacity yesterday, and
Uh-huh.
they do a lot of training for tech, um, whether cyber data analytics, cybersecurity, basically for the whole digital economy. And
Hmm.
his take on it, and this is we see this a lot, where you go to a 4-year college, you come out with like a crazy amount of debt, or your family has a crazy amount of debt they have to take care of, and you can't even get a
Hmm.
suitable job. And then if you can't get a suitable job, how are you going to ever get out of your family's house? How can you ever buy a home? How can you get married? How can you have kids and all that? So maybe there's a
Yeah.
better way. So forget about the college degree. If you want to, let's just take for the sake of conversation, we talked about cybersecurity before. So let's say you just want to do
Right.
cybersecurity. You take coursework where you immerse yourself in cybersecurity. So okay, you may not know medieval, studies. You may not know, certain things that you would have picked up in college, but
Right.
cybersecurity. And then you know what? There's Google. There's podcasts. You
Yeah.
can learn all the other stuff, and then
Yeah.
and then you can have those skills to do it. So I wonder, is eventually we're going to reach the point where, let's say, with your kids get older and they have kids, and colleges, I can't even imagine. Can you imagine what college costs would be? Like, they say, wait, this doesn't make any sense to go to college and spend. By then, it'd be like what, $500,000 or whatever, the
Sure.
the way it's
Sure.
going. So they might say, hey, just I want to do X. Let me take all this coursework for X. I'll be an expert at it. I could show my certifications, my accreditations, and they'll say, oh, okay. If you took this course, we know that it's good. Hey, we're going to hire you to be, a cybersecurity person. And what a
Yeah.
great change that would be, wouldn't it? For
It,
collects, collects,
it
collects.
is, and I've recommended that people start. If companies not paying for it, you got to invest it for yourself, and in the long term, it pays off. You know, a lot of these
Yeah,
companies they have deals all of the time. Udacity does, Skillshare does, many of these places do, where you can
yeah,
upskill and advance your career that way. And you can, by doing your own investment, you completely control where you can go next, as opposed to the company. They have an idea of where they want you. So, either one may work just fine, because you might be able to use that somewhere else. You may not sometimes, because companies do fall behind in technology, and you think that you're going to get the latest in web development when you're just getting the one that was the most cheapest, and everybody else has kind of moved on from the marketplace. So you just never know. So that's not a bad idea of taking,
yeah,
your own and making it your own.
yeah.
So in the long term, we are here near the top of the hour. Got anything coming up?
That's quick, huh? See, the thing that gets me excited is that there's such a disconnect, Mark, where you turn on cable news and you have all these people in these little boxes yelling at each other, ranting at each other, and nothing gets
Right.
done. You go on social
Right.
media, everyone's arguing, fighting with each other. But then every day we have conversations like we had now, where
Hmm.
there's so many interesting things going on. There's so many cool developments. There's so many new innovative companies, innovative programs, so that we're kind of in a time where it's super exciting and there's a lot of
It
changes.
is. It is. It is. And it's great to, to be on top of some of those and be able to flesh them out and to reimagine what it could possibly look like. That's what we do here, at least.
Yep.
But you got any more? You got anything on Forbes that's coming up?
What do I do? I've been writing so much about so many stuff. Although now,
I
like,
know.
with I feel bad because I'm writing stuff that might not be about Ukraine, and I feel like, is this really in poor taste? So I'm trying to figure out what to do. So I wrote a few pieces, more of
No.
more of trying to be like, more positive thinking, how to deal with all these issues going on. So I figured that's what I
Hmm.
was I was writing a few pieces recently about that, like how to help with your mindset to deal with all, these challenging
Yeah, I
times, these
saw the
tough times, how
article.
to get through it. Um, because
Yeah.
I feel a little heavy-handed to do things that, what I mean, are like,
Yeah.
hey, everything is great, where people are miserable because like they're scared out of their minds. Uh,
Yeah, you got
but
to be careful with the messaging that you put out on a daily
yeah,
basis. I definitely get that, and I too kind of I had to think two and three times about what I'm about to say, and this just completely make me seem like I'm tone deaf. So
It's
I get it.
yeah, it's a weird
I get
vibe
it.
because
Yeah,
also you don't
it
wanna
is.
not say things, so yeah, it's just a little awkward. It's trying to figure it
Yeah,
out.
it's kind of it's a risk that you do and a risk that you
Yeah,
don't. Yeah, that's
yeah.
where we're going at. Anyway, join me Friday along with Damian Burkle. We have
Alright,
the
is Damon getting
Monetize
on
Objective.
Friday? Is he gonna make it? Is he gonna be okay?
Yeah, he's gonna make it. Are you doing anything Friday?
His connection is okay?
Friday afternoon? Yeah,
I don't know, check
yeah,
just in
yeah.
case he freezes
You
up.
should you should come and join us anyway. You
Let me
should
see,
come. We don't
Friday
have a guest.
what time on
Friday,
Friday?
1 p.m. same time.
I got one, but I'm just interviewing someone, but I could probably pop on like 1:30 maybe-ish if a
And
little
that'd be great.
afterwards.
Even for a little bit, it's just
Yeah,
Damien
let's see
and
if I can
I.
do that, yeah.
We do. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll send you. I'll include you on the link when
Can I
I'll
come
send you
in?
the link.
Can we mess with David a little bit and I'll come in all like glitchy?
Coming, drive somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, I'll be driving around.
Yes,
"Hey, what are
that
you
that
doing,
was
Jack, you jerk?"
that was too funny. I watched part of the replay. I'm like, gosh, this is so funny.
That man does not give up. I
He
respect him.
felt he does not give up. And Damien's never been really technologically savvy, but
Yeah.
it's so funny. It's kind of like it's like Jiggles, who we haven't seen in a while. Jiggles Walker
Yeah,
and Paul.
he doesn't come on the
Everybody's like,
laptop anymore,
"Hey,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, well, things happen. But we're going to go ahead and sign off. This has been Job
Okay.
Seeker Nation. Join us next
Alright.
Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, Jack. We'll see you.